Good morning, people. Thanks for waking up early on a Friday morning to join us for one of our monthly programs called Forever Forward. My name is Deborah Gallant, and I am joined this morning by many of you and Doogie Levine, who is one of the facilitators at Entrepreneurs Forever. We are going to try to give you as much information as we can in this next hour. This program, Forever Forward, is meant to give you some sort of fundamental learning things that, wow, where am I going to figure that out? Who's going to tell me about that without trying to sell me something? That's really the big difference between our webinars. So today, when Doogie and I dig into CRMs, customer relationship management software, we have no stake in this race. If you buy it, if you don't buy it, what you buy, we just want you to help you think about what's involved with that. And that's what we try to do every month at a Forever Forward. So a little housekeeping, we're going to do our introductions. It'd be really helpful, I think, for both Doogie and myself to know who you are. So if you want to type your your name, your business name, what you do into the chat, I think that would be really helpful. So when Doogie like, you're an artist, you're a, nail salon, you're a whatever you are.
I can cater it more, answers more to you versus generically open-ended.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you who may not know about Entrepreneurs Forever, our mission is to empower all business owners to grow thriving businesses that sustain their families and support their communities. We do that with monthly peer groups, and I see many of our members on here today, but if you're not already a member, we have a weekly business boost, and ironically, Doogie is one of the people who produces those and runs those. And it's a way for us to just get to know you better and you to understand what we do. Because I frequently don't get back to telling you about the next meetings and learning opportunities, I've put it up front. The end of this month, Monday, August 19th, if you have employees, you need a handbook. This one is important. And last month for our deep dive, we ran Hiring Your First Employee. This is the sequel to it. You need the handbook to be able to manage your people. And at our Forever Forward next month, we're having Greg Russack join me to talk about consultative sales conversations. So if you feel you get stuck in those conversations selling your product or service to people, the Forever Forward on August 12th will be for you. All right, this presentation does not take the place of professional advice from your own paid advisors. I think it's a little bit less draconian with today because we're just really talking about the ideas of CRM, but we're not recommending anything. Please don't take it as, oh, Entrepreneurs Forever told me to buy HubSpot and now I wish I didn't. This is really meant to be informative, and it's also meant to be an opportunity for you to ask your questions. So the way these work is I tape the content because we do record it and make it available. We will make sure that we stop the recording at the end if you want to ask about your specific business and get Doogie and my opinion on your business and CRMs. But if as we're going along, there's a question that you have that needs more clarification. I didn't understand what you said. Why does it work that way? What do you know about this system? If it's a general question like that, please, you can type that into chat and we will let you ask your questions. So again, we came to this topic, CRM software, which is customer relationship management software, because we've heard many of our small business owners say, people are talking about this. I don't really know what it is. I think I might need it. And also there's one distinction that I want to make here. Customer relationship management software, as it was initially thought through, like a Salesforce, which is like the super CRM, was meant to help you organize your sales prospects, close people, and manage those relationships. But what's happened is there's what I would call feature creep. And some of the software programs now claim to manage your whole business. And we'll talk a little bit about whether you want technology to help you run your whole business, but we're going to try to focus on the fact that initially it was meant to be a way to manage your sales pipeline, prospects, and customer software. So for my guest today, I'm going to let Doogie tell you about himself. We are so lucky to have him as one of our facilitators, but he has a whole life and history as a fractional COO. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Why don't you tell them a little bit more about what ideas, action, and success is about? And then we'll go
So
back. Sorry.
yeah. So outside of Entrepreneurs Forever, I run IAS Business Coaching Consulting, which is focused on helping operational improvements of businesses. So what I like to say is we help you figure out all those annoying, tough, frustrating how questions. How do I do what I do? How do I get my employees to do what I need them to do? How do I get my customers to go through the process I want them to go through? How do I fulfill the process? So all those how questions is what we do. And that's why I'm here today, to help you figure out how do you manage those relationships and what tool is best to do that for you. So that's my quick intro.
Thank you. I just shared in the chat the handout that it's not like it's authoritative or anything. It's just what we're using for you know, as you work along here and work along this process. Now, of course, I can't find the presentation. There we go. All right. So without further ado, we know this is how many of you are keeping track of your sales leads and your follow-up. I would turn my computer and show you what the front of my desk looks like, because I certainly have those Post-it notes too. But I think there's still a question in people's minds. It's like, how do I know if this is the right thing for me? It feels like it's too overwhelming to figure out what it is, to implement it, and then will I use it, which is where we came up with today's topic. So this is Doogie's and my list, and this is where our handoff comes. Here's the baton for you. Software systems can help if, go ahead, Doogie.
So there are a few different ways to know, like, I'm ready for a software or it's time for me to have a software. And this is not a fully comprehensive list of those things. But this list is the one that we thought about when we were talking about it. So the first one to know that you may be ready for a software is I have a clearly defined sales process. Like, we know from the time we capture a lead to the time we close exactly what that process is. Each of the steps, the different items, the types of conversations, the sales checklists or scripts that we take them through. We know all that stuff, right? It's a great way to do it, and it's a multi-step. So if you run like a retail location where someone walks in, you probably don't need a CRM, you just need a POS system. However, that may change.
If you were selling a high-end art things and people come in and they, decide whether they want to bring their spouse back to look at it or whatever, that does become a more complex sale, right?
Right. So you just got to what I was going to say, which is, however, if there's an aspect of I want to keep contact with these people, right, you will want a CRM so you can manage that relationship. So if you're like, well, I want to be able to keep in contact with them so I can do an email follow-up when I'm running a specific sale of something that they might be interested in. Or, hey, that person actually owns a shop that could wholesale for me. Or, you know what? I sell premium items like art, and it is a longer sales process than they just walk in. My gallery is just one of the final touch points, but not usually the first touch point. So all those things are worth considering, but sometimes you just need a POS system, or sometimes you need a full CRM. And some POS systems do stuff in the middle. Another thing that is really important is if you have multiple customers, and when we say customers, we're talking about customer types. So people buying different types of services or products from you, that you need to manage different experiences, right? It's a really good way of being able to differentiate those customers and those different experiences, because sometimes you can get confused, sometimes you can overlap, all of that. The most important reason is actually this one: if you have more than one person in your company handling these relationships, right? If there's more than just one person engaging in conversations with customers, here's where a CRM thrives. It allows you to capture everybody's conversations in one place, so that if something goes wrong, you can pick up the conversation that somebody else, did, and you can do it. So I'm going to share a little story. I used to own a summer camp, and we used to have this problem with my team. where we weren't all tracking the information the same. So what ends up happening is a customer would call in and they would start talking like we all know what they're talking about. And I would have to backtrack and be like, hold on, catch me up, because it wasn't in the notes, right? Because we
Mhm.
weren't keeping notes. So what did we do? We started fixing this problem. We got a CRM that allowed us to keep notes. So I could just read and then I could be like, oh, your child is X and they're having this experience. I want to let you know I'm aware of it. Here's what we're doing about it. Right? It allowed me to be proactive in those conversations versus reactive because we weren't doing it. So
And I
that's
and I
really,
think, Doogie, one of the subtleties here is many of you are solo entrepreneurs. I'm aware of that. But if you imagine that there's a day when it's not just you answering the phone, it's so valuable to start being able to document this so that the handoff can be seamless. Because trying to download your brain and go, oh, that client never wants to be called by their nickname. Always use the, I mean, that's the kind of notes that you're going to be able to put in there, but you can't think, your institutional knowledge can't all be in your head if you're going to bring even a part-time or a contractor in. So as you think growing, this might be the right time to think about that.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, Deborah, you bring up a really good point of why it's valuable to even as solopreneurs to start doing it. Those subtleties, those little things, especially around identity today, because it's such an important thing that you do not mess up a client's identity. Like it's a very triggering thing, especially for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And you're going to be engaging more and more with these customer types. So getting those things right from the beginning is going to become increasingly important. And that's stuff that's really hard to remember. Exactly how someone wanted you to talk to them, exactly what pronouns they wanted you to use, all of that kind of stuff. Regardless of your personal opinion on the matter, it's from a business standpoint, it's something you're going to have to do. The other thing is if your sales process is really long, right? I'm sure some people have those where it's like you meet the person, but the sale doesn't actually conclude for 6 months and you don't talk to them every single day. So you're going to forget some of the conversations or where you were or where you are in the process. This is where a CRM really helps with that. And then lastly is, are you actually going to use it? Right? A lot of companies have CRMs and really all it is your contact list. Right? All it is the same thing as your Gmail contact list or the contact list in your phone. If you're only going to use it for that, guess what? Your phone already does it. You don't have to do it. So that is that.
The other thing I want to mention about the long sales process is, and we'll be talking about this a little bit in the next month's sales conversations, is a lot of your prospects might not be in the right place at the right time to purchase from you. I know I have a nonprofit consultant who works on strategic plans. And if David calls them, 12 months before they need a strategic plan, unless he's made a note someplace to remind himself to come back to them in 9 months to nudge them, it's just going to be a lost opportunity. So the sales cycle is going to be so different from person to person and from business to business. But think through whether these are issues for you before you dive in too deep.
Absolutely. I mean, that's also like when we talk about your lead and your prospect management, which a CRM can be really good. That's called nurturing, right? What Deborah was talking about, the term, like if you talk to a sales professional, they'll call it nurturing. Um, most of them. So it's like, how do you build that relationship over the time and the length of it, and knowing when to contact somebody and all of that is extremely important, and how and what the preferred methodology and all that. All right. So you're probably asking yourself, if you're considering a CRM, that's why you're here. Um, where do you actually start? And Deborah, if you want to go to the next slide, you start with a list. Oh, sorry. First of all, check off if you qualify for any of these things. All right. On your worksheet.
I put the worksheet in the chat. You all should have it.
Okay. So if you have the worksheet open, just check off how many of the five we have that you actually qualify for. And if any of you marked one, you're probably ready for the CRM. And if you mark the last one, I'll use it. You're definitely ready. Okay. So the first question that you're probably asking, that you need to ask yourself is, what do you need the system to do for you? right? What are going to be the core features? So when you go and talk to a CRM company, they're going to be talking about features. And features are the different sub little things that they have. So some features, for instance, might be marketing integrations. They allow you to run social media, email campaigns, or they allow you to plug into softwares that allow you to do that, right? So that's a feature. Another feature is a contact list. Another feature is an email tool. So you're going to want to know, what can the system do for you? So when you think about your business, you're going to need to think through, what am I currently doing? So if we go to the next slide.
Coming.
Right? What are the current tools you're doing? These may be features that you're looking for in your CRM, right? How many of you are using email to speak with customers, right? Everybody's using email. You probably want to add those emails integrated into your CRM so that the conversations are automatically put into their notes section, right? How nice of a feature is that if you can just look at a CRM and see the emails and you don't have to go into your inbox? That's a great feature that a lot of CRMs offer. Some people, if you have like appointments in your sales process, you're going to want a scheduling tool. You might be using something like Calendly outside of it, but if you can have it in your tool, it may bring you value, or you want it to integrate and plug into Calendly. So you just want to make a list. And I don't know if there's room on your worksheet, but I'll give you about 2 minutes. I just want you to write down, even if there isn't above the process box that I know is on your worksheet, just a list of some of the things you're currently using, software tools. They can be paper tools if you're using them. If you have like an intake checklist or something like that, that's on paper, anything you're using. And if you have a question on, is this a tool? Ask me and I'll let you know if it is or isn't a tool. So just take like a minute or two and just jot down a quick list.
And I see some of you assiduously copying all the slides. Don't worry, I send you the slide deck.
Okay. So you're starting to build this list of potential features you might want and potential pieces of your sales process. But how many of you have actually mapped out your sales process? Like, step 1 to step whatever, 20, 30, 40, or 3, what that is. Show of hands, thumbs up, like I have done it, I haven't done it. Okay, we got some thumbs down. That's fair. Listen, so, all right, some sort of, some kind of. Somebody wrote just 50 emails. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through a sales process map. So this is a tool for just knowing the steps of experience for all the people that are involved in the sales process. Okay. So this one probably more complicated than it needs to be for you, just because it's speaking to a larger SaaS company. So this is a software as a service company. That's what this map is for. And you'll see they have it broken down into 3 categories on the left, right? They have their customer line. So the person they're interacting with, the person they're actually selling to, the salesperson line. So that's the person that's actually completing the sale. And then their account manager, the person that's responsible for making the sale is fulfilled. Right?
In most cases, I would guess you guys are
all 3.
Customer up top and you at the bottom, and there's no anyone else. But you do have multiple interactions. So from the time Cindy gets a phone call from somebody who says, I want a portrait of my pet made, what's the process? Do they say yes then? Do you have to send them a proposal? Do you send them samples? Is it an email? Do you have an in-person meeting? Do they send you photographs? What's that process look like until you deliver the product, and then afterwards, right?
Yeah. So what I'm encouraging is to actually do it by the different hats that you wear. So for all of you that are solopreneurs, you're wearing both hats as account manager and salesperson, and even maybe fulfillment person, right? In the case of Cindy's example, she's wearing all 3 of those hats. She's the salesperson, then she switches to the account manager, managing the project and the customer relationship. Then she's also the person who actually does the art, right? She actually has to fulfill. So she's doing all three of those roles. So what you're going to do is you're just going to map out the experience that you have the customer go through. So I'll walk you through this one just to like explain it. And
Well,
then,
I wonder if we have a volunteer who wants to, besides me picking Cindy because she's right at the top of my screen, is there someone who wants Doogie to help them figure out what their process looks like and you want to talk it? Joanne, you win.
all
Unmute
right, Joanne. So
yourself
why
and
don't we drop the map for a second so we can see bigger faces? I don't actually need the visual.
okay, there you go.
All right. So Joanne, unmute. Tell me about your business. Tell me about the
John
process.
Ann. It's
I'm
John
going to
Ann, and
start
I've
jotting
said it
down
wrong a
some
million
notes.
times myself. I think I got it
That's
right
okay.
finally. Tell him about your business and what your sales process is.
Okay, first of all, excuse me, I just finished working out.
No
So,
worries.
I am the owner of a franchise. So I'm a
Okay.
franchisee. It's a fairly new business. So, I mean, the new concept of franchising for this woman. I am the owner of Pigmenta Permanent Cosmetics in Mashpee, Massachusetts. I'm the owner. I have 2 technicians who work for me, so I don't do the actual artistic work. So it's up to me to do all of the promoting, which I love doing. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. So
Awesome.
I could walk into an office building or doctor's office and let's just say speak to someone who's behind the desk.
So
If it's,
pause for a
yes,
second. So in your initiation with a potential customer, is that how you do it? You door knock? You walk in, like that's the number one way you go and get new leads?
right now, yep.
Okay.
Or I'm in a spa. So I talk to those customers that are there already for their facial.
Okay. So you have 2 main channels, which is one is your retail location, right? Because you're
Yes.
in physically located in a spa, so it's a retail location.
Yes.
And then the other one is door knocking. So that's your
Yes.
step 1 in your customer experience and your sales experience. Step 1 is
Is that
door
the
knock.
map process?
Yeah. So in your box, you can create a square, right? Or something like how I end up doing this. I do a lot of like really big squares, and this is called process mapping. And there's like there's rules to it, but I'm not going to make you follow any of the rules because
Okay.
it doesn't matter. So you're just going to create your first step, which is door knock or someone enters retail location, right? Those are the actions that are taking place to generate the lead.
Great.
Right? That's step 1. What is the next thing that happens? So say you door knock and the doctor says, this might be 2 different customer types because I don't think the doctor's the direct receiver of your service.
No, not right
So
now.
that's like a joint venture partner relationship that you're going for. So that's actually a whole different process you would actually develop. So let's focus on the one that walks into your retail location.
Great.
Okay?
I like that. Yep.
So we're just going to focus on that one. So they walk into your retail location. I'm guessing they kind of approach you because you have some sort of sign or something that's interesting that attracted them. Or
Actually, it's the other way around.
Okay, so you saw someone and you're like, you're perfect for this.
Not perfect, but I like to introduce myself to the other clients because I am fairly new, just like maybe 4 months into the spa.
So do you have like a set way you go about having that conversation? Or is it just kind of like, I'm friendly, I'm a nice person, I can have these conversations?
Yeah.
It's the second one?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things you're going to do is that this is where we call creating a tool.
Okay.
Right? So this tool is going to be what we would refer to as our need assessment. Right? So when you go have these conversations, you need to create like a set of questions that in this very friendly conversation helps you identify really quickly if this person's a good fit for your service.
So I'm asking questions.
You're going to ask questions. Yeah. That's all the needs assessment is. But it's like, what would those questions be that you would need to ask?
Oh,
right?
Okay. I've got an idea on those.
Okay. So I'm sure you do because you probably do it organically.
Yeah.
But if you put them down on a piece of paper, right? Now it's a set list that can be fulfilled, right? Question 1. Are you in the right demographic, right? Like that's probably the first thing you need to answer. Is this person in the right demographic for my service?
But she can answer that for herself by eyeballing them, no?
Potentially, but there are a lot of other things that go into demographics, right? Like you might want to do, I mean, if they're in this spa, they're probably socioeconomically correct and all of those types of things.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is this actually some sort of need alignment? So does the
Exactly.
pigmentation actually service what they need? Or I don't really understand what they're getting, but that's the point. You need some sort of assessment. You probably know what questions you've been asking. Any ways that helps you do that, just put them down on paper. That's your tool, right? The next thing is,
Janann, is there a question that you would ask? You know, Cindy and I are sitting next to each other waiting at the spa. What's a question you would ask that would surface whether we're actually good candidates for what you're doing?
One would be, could you use some time in the morning?
Well, here's the thing. I don't wear any makeup, so it's not going to make a bit of difference for me, but Cindy does. Or I don't know if Cindy does.
This is not makeup, though. See, that's what I would say. This will enhance your natural look. This will enhance what you already have and keep it as a natural look.
So, Joanne, I have a question for you. Does your ideal client understand your product before you talk about it, or they need to get educated?
Both.
What does that mean?
They have an idea. Some of them know specifically what I'm talking about because they have been dying to have this done, these procedures done.
Okay.
Some of them are familiar with it. The person who doesn't know anything about it has not been thinking about on this pathway. They aren't on my pathway, so they would not be my client.
Okay.
Because that's too hard of a sell. And I respect the woman who says, I don't wear any makeup. This is the way I am. And I will say to them exactly what I said. If that sparks something in them, then I introduce the idea of having a free consultation with my master technicians.
Got it. Okay. So the education component, which would be the next thing, right? Because that's the next offer you're making, is this free consultation, which is education, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So your assessment is, do they have the problem, right? You're identifying they have the problem to get them to do this. So then your next phase is what I would refer to as education, which you're calling your consultation with master technician, right? That's education, which is then to identify problem with the features or solution that you offer. Does the technician then do the close? Are they trying to sell them in that setting? Okay, so then your next stage after technician is called close.
Correct.
Right? So we're just mapping this out. So your next thing is
that's
close.
your map.
That's your map.
Yeah, but I've lost you. It's not. I don't know what to do. I've lost you.
You have a 4-stage process right now. That's it.
Okay.
Inside of those stages, you may have multiple, like a process inside of those. You might have like specific things that happen. You have your master technician that's going to take them through an experience, which is kind of more like a presentation probably, or like a little pampering. It's an experience. But really for your retail client, you have 4 experiences that they go through, which the first one is they've entered the building there and you've identified them as a lead just by them walking in there. That's number 1.
Right.
Number 2 is your conversation with them. Right? That's your assessment. It's part get to know, part to identify problem, right? That's number 2. What I would say there is you always want to make sure you're at least capturing their contact information. Okay? Sorry.
I'm at least, yes, that's a toughie. Getting their full name and phone number.
Yeah, I would also see email sometimes easier. People are more willing to give those up because it's easier to ignore.
But you know what? You can get that usually by offering them something. So even if they're not interested, it's like, can I put you on my list so you can hear about specials that we have coming up? Or we're having a spa day coming up. Almost anyone will agree to be on an invitation list.
Yeah. Then your third step is that education, is that consultation with the technician the free consultation.
Right.
It's also the offer at the end of your conversation, right?
Right.
That's step 3. And then step 4 is done by your technician, which is the close.
Right.
That's your sales process. You have a 4-step
Right.
process. And you may
ID,
want to look at this.
conversation,
Yeah, go ahead.
consult, and tech will close.
That's
Yep.
right.
And you may want to
Great.
look at it and say, should it remain 4 steps? Should it become 5? Should it, right? You may want to look at it and see if that experience is working in terms of conversions.
Yeah.
And the thing that I want to point out here is those are the basic 4 steps, but there's going to be variations, right? So if in that conversation you get somebody like me who goes, I don't wear makeup, not interested. Well, I still engaged with you. And if I agree to give you my email address, I'm not going for the consultation, but you could be nurturing me for a later lead, or my daughter comes to visit and she's really interested in it.
Exactly.
But if you
Exactly.
don't capture me, then you lose
So
out.
I'm going to quickly show what happens in your sales process. So right now, there are some elements you need to add. And this map is actually going to help show you those. So for instance, in this case, we're here, right? That's your close. The customer decides to buy, right? It's the little diamond shape.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
The green diamond is what I'm talking about right now. So
Yeah.
that's the customer decides to buy, right? So they've gone through your consultation and they're at a decision point. If they say no, you need to put them into some sort of nurturing relationship,
Yes.
right? Because there are many different types of no. There's no never, right? Or as a
Right.
business coach once told me, the church no, right? That's what he called it. That's the absolute no. But most of the time, it's not yet, not necessarily for me right now. I'm not ready. I don't have the funds, but I want it.
Right.
Right? There are 1,000 other no's. And that's where nurturing comes in. So in your case, you have 2 places where the customer can exit the conversation and give you a no, right? There are 2 places. One is your first conversation with them when you just kind of generically talk to them. They can give you a no there.
Yep.
So you need some sort of nurturing pipeline from there. And then also after the education, they can give you a no. So those are the 2 places for you where they have an exit.
Yes. So the conversation, which is the assessment.
Yep.
And then the tech in closing.
Yep.
That they could say no there. Right.
And I want us to come back to, and Doogie, since you have it up, continue with the conversation about CRMs. But I just want to remind you all, the reason we're taking this slight detour into sales process, which has nothing to do with software, is that if you don't figure this out first, then the software can't help you. And you're back to the million post-it notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the biggest thing to know, like what tools you actually need, what software systems, all of that. You have to understand your process. And then you're going to, what you do now is once you have a process mapped out, is you want to go back and connect each of the different tools. You want to go back and connect each of the different features, your tools that you're currently using. So if there's a point where you would email them, write email at this stage, right? If there's a point where you're going to record information, right? I'm recording the following information at that stage, right? You're going to want to note all of those things depending on where they are at that stage. And it can be start just this simple as the one we just did, right? It's 4 steps. There are things underneath that need to be developed, but it's that simple for a lot of businesses right now. And start there and then start connecting some of the elements. Okay. Any questions on that before we go into the next most important thing? No?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sure.
My question is slightly different. I mean, we have B2C and B2B customers. So I think direct to consumer, like the discussion that we just had is seems a bit more straightforward for me. Like, you either meet them in person, email and phone calls, what have you, or like social media. But like the B2B, we just started putting together like on Canva process and all of this. It just seems to be getting complicated. And especially if there's more than, like I'm trying to bring some help. let's say our thought process is send an email one, right? Either email or we have Fair, all these other platforms to communicate. Did not hear from them. Then try another, this set of like language. You change the language in the email to, and then
So you have a different
phone
script.
call. But then it's also like, to your point, like it gets a bit complicated. It's not so straightforward. And it's just like, well, a no is not a no. And so how do we keep track of, like, let's say we have 100 stores to attack as a goal for the end of the year. I'm just picking up numbers at this point. How do we, how without a software, because I was, HubSpot seems expensive and I just don't know if there is a lesser expensive tool, but then on Excel, I feel like this cannot be maintained in the long term. So I don't know if you have any solution.
Yeah, so long term, you definitely can't, you won't be able to do it. But if you're looking at 100 potential cases, you can still build that out in Excel without it being terribly cumbersome. You can definitely do it. I would actually recommend like Google Sheets, because then it's shared between you and the other people and you can build it that way, or a program like Notion. If you're familiar with Notion, you could build it in those, and those are totally free. Also, there are a lot of CRMs that will allow you, if you're going to do one user for free and you get a multiple people just log into that account, that's a workaround. But in terms of your overall process to determine this, get it down on paper like that. This process map is a B2B relationship in reality. Right. That's what they're mapping out. They're selling a SaaS product to another business. So put that down on paper first, all the different events. And if you have a decision tree, which it sounds like you do, which is like, if they say yes, go here. If they say no, do this.
Yeah.
If they don't respond, do this, right? That's 3 different decision possibilities. Put that down on a piece of paper, just that decision tree. And you can call it like script 1, script 2, like name your things and just see what all those things are. And then backtrack and say, hold on, how do we make this simpler?
Yeah. So I guess where I was going, sorry, I'll keep this really short, but let's say we have a goal of, we'll take each week 10 stores and then we'll keep, and then I'm just stuck in my mind, like, how do we keep track of like the July 1st week customers versus the June 5th? Like, how do we, it's manually, that seems very.
Well, you may also be tracking it incorrectly.
Okay.
Like if I'm going to give you like 2 cents of advice here, I wouldn't track it by when we start the relationship. I would track it by which stage of the relationship those customers are at.
Right. Okay.
So if they're in they have an engaged stage, which is stage 1, versus they're talking with a salesperson, which is stage 2, versus they're getting the information presentation, which is stage 3, versus 4, which is the closing stage. And you might have multiple events in each of those stages. I would track them more along where they are in that than when you started that relationship with them.
That makes sense. I think that might be easier to filter and keep track. And
yeah, it's going to be way easier to do it, because then it's just, where are they in the process versus like, when did we start? Because that really doesn't matter. Like, it's not an important fact where you are in your business. You may want to know 10 years down the line, like, oh my God, our clients mostly purchase in June, right? If we start our conversations in June, we close quicker. That may become important down the line, but right now it's really not important.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So once you understand your process, the next most important thing is, what is your company's budget for a CRM? Kay just explained the fact that, she has budget constraints around buying a software. If your business doesn't have a budget, you don't know how much you can actually afford to spend. And CRMs can range anywhere between, on the low end, free for limited features, limited accessibility, and limited connections, to thousands of dollars a month. It all depends too. You can also build your own custom CRMs. This is becoming increasingly popular. But the next stage is build a business budget. If you don't know the number, you really can't engage in these conversations because they'll sell you more features than you need and more than you can afford. Build a budget. And I'm sure Deborah will have one of these on budgeting in the future. I know there's a lot of tools in the eForever web resources on budgeting. Build a budget.
Well, and I guess one of the things I say is that I know some of you maybe aren't budgeting very much now, but you can think about the value of your sales and your lost sales if you're not tracking and not following up and sort of back into, gee, this is worth investing in because it's going to improve my business.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, the CRM really is an investment because it takes a little bit of time to get up and using it and figuring it all out. But one of the things to look at is there a CRM that's specifically built for your industry? So a lot of people that are larger, like that grew their company, they built their own CRM systems, they then go ahead and try to sell them. So there's a lot in the construction field. There's a lot in like landscaping that I know about. SaaS, of course, there's hundreds there. Like Salesforce is one that's known for this. Like it was built as a software as a service platform. Do some research and see if there's ones there. I know there's for photographers, which could probably easily be adopted for art. They're just, sometimes they're a better fit because they understand your industry and they're a really good place to start at the beginning because they already understand your workflows. So it's a good place to start. That's the next question to ask after my budget. Deborah?
And the other thing I'll say is when you think about what it is you want the software to do, I know MindBody, because I have a friend who worked there when there were 20 employees and now they're absolutely enormous. You know, they'll run the full back end of a spa or a gym or something. And maybe you want that, but maybe you don't. But knowing what you want when you go in helps you kick the tires on these software systems.
Good point. Another great question. Go ask other people in your industry. I'm sure you know colleagues that do the same or similar things to you. Ask them what they're doing. Ask the company that's slightly the next stage of where you're trying to go. Right?
Or
if
maybe
you know,
who's in a parallel business or a non-competitive business so that they can share.
Both. I mean, sometimes you have competitive businesses that are still willing to share. Right? In really healthy relationships, like I work with a lot of other people that are in similar industry, like literally doing the exact same work as me. And we have very open and honest conversations because we all believe that like there's enough work for all of us. We're not really competing. And if somebody figures out something better to help everybody, because we're all in this to help businesses. So if you have a community like that, great group to survey.
Mm-hmm.
If not, find somebody similar. You know, if you're selling paintings, find the potter. The larger pottery company, right?
Yeah, and I know for Kay that there are different like people who run like community kitchens where a lot of small producers are working. Go pick that person's brain and say, when you've helped other businesses, what software system, what CRM software did you recommend as they increase their sales? And they may actually have names for you.
All right. So the next thing is once you've done all of these types of things, you've done your research, it's now, and you have the list of the features that you want, you understand your sales process, you're going to want to create your questions for your test drive, right? So when you go to these CRM companies and you go to start taking interest and you have their conversation with their salespeople, you want to be on the front foot instead of being on the back foot, right? Come prepared with a lot of questions. These are some of the ones we're suggesting that you have, but you can add your own questions to it. The idea is that you walk in there and you're ready to go and say, hold on, no. Can it do XYZW? And how easy is it to teach someone that's never interacted with your software before? That's what's important to me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you sell me 3 other features, is there a way to turn them off? Because I don't need them. You know, and can you give me a different deal? Knowing those types of things, really powerful in those kind of conversations. One of the most important ones is how easy is this software to grow with my business? Right now, some softwares, for instance, priced by the number of accounts that you have in it. Some do it by the number of users. Some people just do it as a flat fee. So their pricing model, you want to know how easy it is for it to adapt and grow. And also see if you can they'll put you in touch with a current client and see if they're having any growing pains. That's always a really good way to do it, which is like, actually, my business is outgrowing the software. It doesn't work so much for the way we operate it now, but it works really well at this stage. Great. You know that after you reach 1,000 customers or whatever, I'm going to have to transition and get a new software. One that's
Well,
more
and then
robust.
you need, what will it take to export the data from the system, because you'll need it somewhere else. So not just import, but export.
Yeah.
How well does it play with other software?
And when we talk about data, most of the time in the terms of a CRM, we're talking about a contact list. You know, the name, first name, last name, email, phone number, maybe some basic information. That's what we're really talking about when we talk about data in this case. At least where most of you are in terms of the stage. When you leave a program like this, you're going to want to be like buying habit, buying cycle, average price. Like you want to be able to export that kind of data as well. So that's what you want to do next. Some things some pitfalls to avoid here. If you're not going to commit to it, don't buy one. It's that simple. If you're not willing to use it as one of the 3 things that's up on your desktop every single day that you're looking at and you're using regularly, that you're inputting data, you're going through it, you're setting the automated reminders for, if you're not willing to commit to it, don't use it. Don't buy one. You can run your business on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard. You can do it. Like, there's no reason you can't. It's just not the most efficient. A lot of things can go wrong. More mistakes can happen. But do that. So that's what the first 2 points are. If your business is really simple right now, also, you don't need to invest in it yet. You can use something as simple as Notion or an Excel document to just track these basic interactions so that when you're ready, you can upload them in there when you're ready, right? And you also don't have to run your whole business on a software right now. So say you actually use like 3 or 4 pieces of software. I have a client who's a construction company and they use 5 key softwares, and their CRM doesn't integrate with 3 of them. So we had to then build what's called Zapier, which is another program that you have to pay for to integrate that information. So there are workarounds, but when you're smaller than they are, like you can just run and manually do the input or have one of your team members manually do the input. So
But
those are just some things to
you
avoid.
get off Post-it notes. Start writing it down somewhere that's shareable, somewhere, somehow.
Yeah, I really suggest actually a lot of people, when you're small and you're starting out and you may or may not be ready, start with some combination of a physical whiteboard and an Excel document.
Or Google Sheets.
Or Google Sheets, right? Start with some combination of those 2. Test out what information is actually important for you to keep at each stage. Then you're really ready to go into a CRM and start putting that information in. So you can do that for like a month and be like, all right, this is a lot of writing and a lot of time. I want to automate these things. And then you're ready.
But remember, if you bought a CRM today and you don't even have a Google Sheet of all your customer names, phone numbers, and email addresses, there's no data to put in it. So you should be gathering it someplace digitally in a consistent basis so that you at least have input for it.
All right. So this is really more for when you're ready to start having multiple people engaging with your CRM. But starting to build these things from the beginning is really important. We're not going to go like deep into these, just based on what I heard and where people are in terms of the stage. So the first one is when you do get a CRM, you're going to create your own company standards, right? This is a policy. This is a set of procedures for how information is recorded in the CRM, how we actually are going to engage and use in this. And this is everything from the type of language that we want to use to the type of information we want to capture at each stage, right? So for instance, examples of things that I made sure that we recorded that were not just like their name, their contact information, their phone number, right? That's basic stuff. I always would be like, what are the parents' interests when I was running my summer camp? I would always ask, like, try to figure that kind of stuff out because that's places I might want to go market. I would record any kind of information about the kids' behavior, what school they went to, all those kind of additional information And we try to get that organically through conversation. I wasn't just going to be like, hey, what are you interested in? Right? I would let those things kind of happen. And if they came up in conversation, we would just add it in there. So that's kind of the additional information we would want to
But
record.
a simple example of the standards is, let's say Kalpana likes to get people's titles so that she can call them Mr., Mrs., Ms., MX, whatever. If she collects it and the other people who work for her don't collect it, then when she goes to send an email, it's going to look inconsistent because some of them are going to go, Dear Jane, and some are going to say, Dear Mrs. Smith. Just figure out how you want to manage the data up front so it's all uniform. One of the things that frustrates me is when you can see somebody put all caps with the name. And it's like, Dear, all caps. It's like, why is that? Because that's how it was entered. So that's how it came out. So what if garbage goes in, garbage comes out, but decide how you want to manage that from day one, and you won't have those problems down the road.
Yeah. Also, a lot of the things, especially since a lot of CRMs now have the ability to email directly from the CRM, and it will pull that information into it. So it'll be like, say you send like you've received a mass email, for instance, but it seems like it's written to you personally because it inserted your name into a merge cell, but they messed up your name because they entered it wrong. We've all had that kind of experience from a large company. That's the reason, because they didn't follow their standards. That's the reason that occurred.
It's a little thing, but you know what? If you get off on the wrong foot with one of these prospects and you wreck your chances because you spelled their name wrong or they called them Mr. when they weren't a Mr., it's just, why do that?
Yeah. The next thing is that just quickly back there was the procedures and training. So you're going to want to write a standard operating procedure for your CRM use. That can be something that's developed over time as you use it and you use more features of it. But just keep kind of like a checklist of like, we do this. It will include your information recording standards document. It will include like what happens at each stage. And the best thing you can do is if you can record it while you're doing these things, you then have training videos to give employees. So when they come to ask you, like, how do I do this thing? I'll be like, well, have you watched the video? No? Start there.
There's a really easy tool called Loom that can record what you're doing on your screen. It records it, captures it, and then someone else can watch it later. Oh, this is how she did that. Very easy. I'm going to make a decision here, Doogie, that I'd like you to show that Agile account. This is just, if you have never seen the back end of what a CRM looks like, and by the way, this is going to be scary and daunting because it's overkill for most of us. I asked him to bring it up just so that we can see what goes into one of these systems.
So Agile is a very robust CRM. You can start you can start for free. I literally just created this account this morning. I don't actually use Agile for my business, but it's one that's built for a lot of e-commerce companies, SaaS companies, retail. That's what this software is designed for, and tech consulting firms. So this is what's called their dashboard. I'm on their dashboard. It's the main hub. And as you can see, they have 4 main trackers built into this. Company's total revenue, deals, that's the number of deals that they're currently working on. Calls, they want you to measure how many times you're actually contacting customers. And tasks, this might be something that's assigned to you by a manager or you assign to yourself to do. So that might be like, follow up with Joanne about buying some more pigment. I don't know, right? That was a task that I need to set for myself. So you'll be able to do all of those things in here. This one has a nice feature where you can actually manage and set up your dashboard. I'm not going to go all the way into that. But along the left here are all the different things. So right now it's prompting me to import my contacts. And Agile is great because you can just import in an Excel document or like from Salesforce if you already have it, because it plugs into Salesforce tools. And then it also plugs into a bunch of other ones.
So
like
that if you are
directly
keeping
from
your contacts in Google, you could import all your Google contacts in here. So FreshBooks, which is a billing software, this is the kind of stuff you want to check out. There's QuickBooks if you use QuickBooks. If you're e-commerce, you're using Shopify, Stripe. This is how you're going to kickstart the data by having it put in there. And what you can also see from the front page of that dashboard is this starts to potentially take on all the different parts of running your business because your calendar is there. You can email
Yeah.
right from the software, and then it's going to keep a record of who you emailed. So you have to make a decision on how much of this you really want to put into place or whether you want to integrate with things you already use.
Yeah. So it allows you to also manually, I can create a new contact if I wanted to right here. Basic information. What you'll see in a lot of softwares is this thing called tags. And what I recommend is creating tags based off of the stages of the sales process. It's a really good way to do it. Where are they in the sales process is a great way to tag them. Another way to use it is who's responsible for that lead. Who's responsible for that relationship is another way to create good tags. And then the third way that you can choose to use tags is to based off of the service or product type that they're in the pipeline for. So you'll see that in there. When you go and set up a CRM, it will allow you to create tags. A lot of the companies, if you go and buy it and talk to one of their sales reps, they'll help you build those out based off of your workflow.
But remember, you want to be driving it based on your workflow, not on the software saying you should do it this way. It's what works for your business, more important than what does the software do.
So this is just like you can build them out based off of company information. I'm not going to go through all the feature. This is actually where their workflow is. Agile is really nice because you can build your own custom workflows. They call them deals. So you can build it for each individual client. That's why it's really good for like custom software companies because each one's getting something different. So they build custom workflows for them. There's documents you can put like add checklists in and stuff like that. If you want to add your own checklist, or if there's an electronic document you want an employee to fill out, you can do that. It has like a whole bunch of little features. This is the email feature. You can go and email people directly from it. It has a calendar feature, right? It plugs into other scheduling softwares and things like that. You can set hours and do all sorts of things. Yeah. So
all right, I think we could stop.
I think we get the point. I don't want to go through all the feature. I'm not selling Agile to anyone. I don't
I
necessarily
think
even recommend it
it's
to
just an
everybody.
example.
It's just
I'm
an easy
actually
one to
gonna
demonstrate.
I want to stop the recording.